Cold cases, missing persons, unsolved crimes. This is a Monday Night Mystery with Mitch McCoy.
Welcome in to another Monday Night Mystery. There is breaking news. The search for Kaniya Weddle is over. Arkansas State Police confirming today DNA results are in. The 30-year-old's body found in the St. Francis River late last week. We are live tonight as we trace her last steps and go into the multi-agency investigation. Good evening and thank you for joining us here tonight on Monday Night Mystery. I am Mitch McCoy. I want to get straight to the panel here. We have Latricia Woodruff in the upper left-hand corner. We have Sergeant Thomas Cole to the right, and we have Kelly Ward, a former Pulaski County prosecutor, also joining us here tonight. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Obviously, we were talking 1 week ago about Kaniya and that urgent search that was underway for her in northern Pulaski County. We were talking about her cell phone ping there and her family joining her in that search. Obviously, a heartbreaking end to it. I want to get straight to Latricia Woodruff. She is a law enforcement and communications expert. Latricia, catch us up on the case details.
Mitch, this is certainly a heartbreaking end to the search for 30-year-old Kaniya Weddle. Again, she went missing April 14th. She was last seen about 10:48 that. And from what we understand, she was supposed to leave that bar and meet some friends at another bar, but she never showed up. So her family started searching for her. They told police that she was not the type to just wander off and not tell them where she's going or to be missing for days on end. So they were very, very concerned about 30-year-old Kaniya Weddle. Well, a week later, her body was found, as you stated, on April 22nd, just one day after it made a week of her being missing. April 22nd, her body was found inside of a vehicle in the St. Francis River in Lee County, some 90 miles away from Little Rock. And now the investigation really begins to find out exactly what happened to 30-year-old Kaniya Weddle and how she came to be in the St. Francis River.
Well, and there are so many questions about this, Latricia, and I am just interested in our show tonight because we certainly need to get an understanding of what's happening in this investigation, and I want to go ahead and bring up the hashtag. It's there at the bottom of the screen. Use the hashtag Monday Night Mystery, and you can interact with the panel. And when you use that hashtag, we're able to bring it up and we're able to bring your comment in just like that. Want to get straight to Sergeant Thomas Cole, a major crimes detective. Sergeant, thanks for joining us again here on Monday Night Mystery. We were talking about those cell phone pings last week. Now we have a body. What's happening at Arkansas State Police headquarters as they dive into this investigation?
Yeah, so, initially when we were looking at this as kind of a missing persons case, obviously one of the things they want to do is look into those cell phone pings and, where the last known locations. Well, now they can kind of work this from a different angle, which is now they have a location. So are there ways that they can see, what cell phones might have been in those areas? If there were cell phone towers in that area, the phone company may be able to tell us, just what phones were in that area at particular times of day. We don't have all the case details in front of us, but hopefully state police, any other investigating agencies that are looking into this will have some pretty good time frame of when they think that suspects may have been in the area. And so hopefully they can kind of work it from that angle when it comes to phones, and, phone pings and cell phone tower information, things like that.
If you're just joining us tonight, we are talking about Kaniya Weddle, the 30-year-old woman vanished from, it was Bar Louie on Cantrell Road, and there was an urgent search for her underway for more than a week. And we, late last week, we learned about a body that was found in the St. Francis River, and it is that of Kaniya Weddle. You can use the hashtag Monday Night Mystery and interact with the entire panel tonight. And it's so important that you use that hashtag Monday Night Mystery, as I'm also looking, and I'm about to bring in some of the comments here. We're looking at the panel right now. Shantae wants to know, and Latricia, I'll point this question to you, is the vehicle her vehicle? We are talking about that 2019 Black Grand Cherokee. Tell me, or Kelly, tell me, what do we know about the vehicle?
From what I understand, it's believed that it's her vehicle that she was inside of. But again, we don't have the case notes in front of us. We haven't gotten that direct information, but the speculation at this point is that it was her vehicle that she was found inside of. As I stated, we don't have that complete confirmation, so that information could change. But the fact that this young woman was found inside of a vehicle and she is no longer with us, that doesn't change.
Yeah, and this is not technically a homicide investigation just yet, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. And Sergeant Thomas Cole, that topic is going to be right up your alley. I want to get to Retha. Retha is using the hashtag Monday Night Mystery. You see it there. Are there any suspects? Kelly Ward, former Pulaski County prosecutor, tell me about what we know about suspects in this investigation.
Well, at this point, it's a death investigation. We don't know. It hasn't been reported from the state police or from Lee County that it's a homicide. The first thing that's going to happen, of course, is they're going to set up a crime scene there where the vehicle's found. They're going to bring their crime scene technicians, their detectives, their investigators are going to start working that scene. They're going to search the area for evidence. But the main thing that I would want to know as the prosecutor is you would want to get coroner report and the medical examiner's report. That's going to tell us what the cause of death is. Until we know that, we can't know if this is something where there was a homicide, if there was foul play. At this point, we just don't know. But that medical examiner's report, or even the coroner's report, which won't be as detailed as an autopsy, it might give some information about whether or not this is going to be investigated as a homicide.
Sergeant Thomas Cole, major crimes detective. Sergeant, what goes into determining a cause of death?
Yeah, so there's kind of the entire investigation. Ultimately, the cause of death will be determined by the medical examiner. When a coroner is out at the scene, as well as officers and investigators at the scene, they can typically, well, in some cases, depending on what evidence is in front of them, they can kind of make an initial kind of ruling or kind of their best understanding of what they're looking at. But typically, and especially in a case like this, they're going to want to have the body undergo a full autopsy. In those cases, the body will go to the state crime lab in Little Rock, and the medical examiner's office there will do a complete autopsy where they are looking for any kind of injuries, but also, blood toxicology. They'll look at, internal issues, potentially, if they could be along the lines of sicknesses or any other kind of illness or just malformations on the organs. They just get really thorough, and they will eventually post their kind of their final findings, and they'll provide those to the coroners as well as the investigating agency to have kind of a final official record of what caused the death. And in many cases, they'll be able to determine the cause of death as well as the manner of death.
So if this is going to be a homicide investigation, is determining cause of death going to be the first and foremost?
Sure. And so for one, it will kind of give the investigators maybe some ideas of what they need to be looking for. So if there's a knife wound, obviously they need to be looking for knives or objects that could leave that kind of wound. Bullet wounds, they would need to be looking for guns or shell casings or bullets, things like that. And certainly on the prosecution side, and Kelly could talk about this, being able to say how the person died is pretty important. If you're going to say that the person, was killed and that, this person, the suspect, this is who did it, you need to be able to say how it happened or how they died and how their death was caused.
Kelly Ward, former prosecutor, pick it up.
So yeah, what Sergeant Cole was explaining is the medical examiner is going to tell us the cause of death, which could be, knife wound or asphyxiation, gunshot wound. And I'm just talking generally, not talking about this case, but the medical examiner will do the autopsy and determine, in his or her opinion, what caused the death of the person. And then the next thing they'll determine is the manner of death, which people don't talk about a lot, but it's really one of the most important things. Is the manner of death could be homicide, it could be natural causes, suicide. Those are the options. Homicide would be the death was caused by another person. And so that's what a prosecutor, investigators are going to be looking at in that medical examiner's report. What caused the death? And is it the medical examiner's opinion that the death was caused by another person, that it's a homicide, rather than accident or something like that?
Well, and there is just so much to all of this. Again, use the hashtag Monday Night Mystery if you want to chime in on this conversation here tonight. We're talking about Kaniya Weddle, 30-year-old woman. She disappeared from Bar Louie in Little Rock. That was the last place she was seen. Her phone pings in northern Pulaski County, just outside of Jacksonville, and then just several days later, her body is found in the St. Francis River in a car that was floating in the river. And there are questions coming in right now, and I want to get to some of them. This is Stephanie. Stephanie is asking this question using the hashtag Monday Night Mystery. Was she located in the driver's seat? If not, was the height of the seat adjusted to her or a larger individual? Latricia or Sergeant Cole, one of you guys picked this question up because I am interested in what state police would look at when they pulled that car from the river and this vehicle is now a crime scene.
Yeah, I can talk to that a little bit. Obviously, they're going to look at a lot of that kind of stuff, and that it's a really good question about where the seats adjusted or what position she was in. I don't believe we have that information, and Mitch, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that obviously could change things quite a bit. Anytime you're working any kind of a crime scene, as an investigator, you have to consider the possibility that if this was a homicide, there could be some element of staging to the scene. So sometimes even if you were to find someone in the driver's seat, that doesn't necessarily mean that's where they were when they were killed. And so you have to really look at it, kind of take a step back and look, does everything make sense that we're looking at? And so you do want to look at those details, like the person who asked the question was mentioning, but you also have to look at it and make sure that it all makes sense, and that it all sticks together. So yeah, really good question.
Yeah, that is a very good question. As we discuss this case and we try to go right into the middle of this investigation, again, use the hashtag Monday Night Mystery if you're just joining us here, and I'm monitoring all the questions coming in. It is just so much questions coming in right now. Some of the things we don't know the answers to, but some of them we do, and we can dive right into the middle of this investigation. I want to get to Brittany's question right now using the hashtag Monday Night Mystery. There's been talks of a serial killer from the Hot Springs area. How accurate is that? Latricia, you and I were actually, if memory serves correctly, we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. That's fake news, has nothing, there's no truth to it. It comes down to social media rumors. The two are not connected.
No, the two are not connected. As you stated, that's not good information. Social media can be like a wonderful, wonderful tool for law enforcement. In the past, I've been able to use social media to help find people, gather information from people, witnesses, anyone that may have been in the area, and drum up, people's memory about something that's happened. But also it can be not so useful sometimes because the rumors get started and it starts clouding all the information, and someone may have some information, then they hear about this conflicting information and then think that, hey, what I was thinking or the information that I had does not align with that, so my information is not important. Well, and they could be getting false information from social media. So it can be a hindrance in some of these cases, but it can also be a great help. And we're hoping that someone sees her face and remembers that they saw her somewhere during the time after she went missing, and that they can give us this information so that we could figure out exactly what happened to her.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As the case details are up on the screen right now, and I want to get to some more questions coming in right now. This is Ariel's question. Ariel has a pretty good question. Using the hashtag Monday Night Mystery, that's a 90-minute drive, and we're talking about from Jacksonville, where her phone pinged, to Mariana at the St. Francis River in Lee County, where her body was found, using the hashtag Monday Night Mystery, saying that's a 90-minute drive. Do police have any suspects or any idea as to how she got there? That's a rural area. You don't just drive and end up there. Why is this not a homicide case? This is so sad. I want to break this down into two different answers from two different people. And I want to begin with Sergeant Thomas Cole. Sergeant Thomas Cole, pick up the first part of that question. That is a 90-minute drive. I mean, that is just, how do you end up from Jacksonville to Lee County, Arkansas? Especially at 10:30 at night when her phone pings in rural Pulaski County. What's law enforcement doing right now to trace her last steps?
Yeah, so we talked about last week when we were talking about this case, how if in a missing persons case, a lot of times you want to start with wherever you have concrete information. And in this case, last week, that was at Bar Louie, and officers and investigators would be getting video and just trying to see, if they can at least get pointed in the right direction and potentially find, well, where's the next solid place? Maybe they see her car drive by a gas station and they can say, okay, this is our new, last sighting, and we can kind of work outward from there. Well, now they have a new, unfortunately, last place to start from. And so the investigation will kind of balloon out from that area. Obviously, they have kind of a direct crime scene or an initial crime scene that they're working there where the vehicle was recovered. But I mean, literally in our office, we will just pull up a map of the area and start looking at what's the closest place we maybe could go to see if there's any video footage. Obviously, they also have an idea of where the vehicle was coming from the Little Rock area. So they may have an idea of what highways to check on the way. So if there's a major road, or in some cases, there might be kind of only one real way to get from one place to another. So they may be checking cameras along that route as well. So they've now got a new pinpoint location that they can work outwards from. And so they'll be doing that probably pretty feverishly at this point.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I want to have Kelly Ward pick up the second part to that question. And Ariel's question was, why is this not a homicide investigation yet? Kelly, for folks just joining us, can you kind of catch people up as to cause of death and, from a prosecutor standpoint, why that's important, but why this isn't technically a homicide investigation yet?
So before it can become a homicide, and like we've already said, we don't know what the investigators know. We have limited information that they have released at this time, and we know that they don't release all the information immediately, and because they have to protect their investigation, and we understand that. So we're working with the information that's been released by the state police, and at this time we don't know what the cause of death is. In order for something to be a homicide, the prosecutor has to be able to prove that the deceased died because of actions of another person. And that's the simplest way to put it. Whether it was, they were strangled, they were hit with a blunt force, they were shot. It has to be something where the death was caused by the actions of another person. And at this time, we just know that her body was found in the St. Francis River. We don't know what caused her death at this time. So without that very important piece of information for our discussion, it's still a death investigation. And the one thing that Sergeant Cole said that I wanted to kind of add into is that the officers or the investigators will definitely be looking along the route that you would take between Little Rock and Lee County. They could go, they'll probably be looking at gas stations, truck stops, any fast food restaurants. All those places now are equipped with surveillance cameras, or most of them are, and they should be able to get, they're going to be going back, retracing those steps to find out if there's any video. If this was the car, that was Kaniya's car, they're going to be looking for that car. They're going to be looking for the car. If it wasn't her car, they're going to be looking for the make and the model of the car that was found. So there's a lot going on right now. We know that Little Rock sent out a flyer, I guess it was on the 16th, saying she was missing. So they were working the case. Now we've got Lee counties involved. Now we've got the state police involved. So there's a lot of moving parts to this investigation right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of moving parts to this investigation, and I want to bring in a couple more questions here. Amanda is asking a question. Did she know anyone in the area or in Memphis using that hashtag Monday Night Mystery? Latricia, that is something that law enforcement's going to be tracking down as they try and track down why she was driving from Jacksonville, Arkansas to Lee County, Arkansas.
They've started tracking down even who she was with before she left. Someone brought up on Facebook here who was the young lady in the picture with her, and one would think that they've already spoken to that young lady and anyone else that saw her that night, the people she was supposed to go and meet. And if she has ties to that area, did she know anyone from Lee County? They're looking into all of that to try to figure out how she came to be in Lee County, found inside of a vehicle in the St. Francis River, from maybe what she was doing in the days before, all of her relationships, if she was involved in anything that involved other people that could lead to exactly what happened to her. They're even just going to be looking into if she drove herself to Lee County, because we don't know what they know at this point. So we can't say that this is a homicide at this point. I know there's a lot of speculation and it could very well turn out to be a homicide, but at this point, they're not saying whether it's a homicide investigation. So we know that they're going to be looking into that aspect, but just looking into other things to figure out exactly how she came to be in that area. Does she know anyone? Did she communicate with anyone in the time that she left the bar up until the time she was found? From what we understand, no one has heard from her, but they'll still be looking into that. She could have been texting someone. Whoever's been in contact with her, the last person to talk to her, text with her, or call her on her cell phone, they're looking into all of that to figure this out.
Another question coming in, was it a wreck? And, I'm not familiar with the layout. I know, Kelly Ward, you always like to take a good Google map look at the scene. Has anybody thought about could this have been a wreck?
If you look at I think the report said it was near the Huxtable water pumping station, and that's pretty, if you look at the Google Maps, pretty remote. You can see the water pumping station in the river, but there aren't a lot of roads that I was able to see. It's about one in, one out. This is not like a heavily trafficked area. So we don't know what if there was any damage on the car or not. We don't know what information the car might give investigators. It's been submerged in water, but could information in the car survive? You can get a lot of stuff from cars these days, especially if it's a new car in 2020, 2019. They have all sorts of information stored in those computers. It can tell you pretty much anywhere that the car has been, if you're able to get that information, if it's not damaged. So that's another thing investigators will be looking into, is whose car is this? Was it her car? What condition is it in? And is there any information still that they're able to pull out of the computer in the car?
Sergeant Thomas Cole, I want to get to you. What do we know about collecting evidence from a car, especially after it's been submerged in water? Can evidence still be salvaged?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there there are all kinds of evidence kind of in every category you could think of. And while it can be really difficult, and certainly, weather affects evidence and different kinds of evidence are affected differently by weather, there's still some real good technology out there for collecting stuff. But there's also some evidence that won't be terribly affected. I mean, there could be, clothing. If there was somebody else in the car with her, there could be, hats. We get, just work in my cases. It's not uncommon to find hats or shoes in cars. And you wouldn't think, that if someone was involved in some kind of illegal activity that they would leave something like that behind, but it happens more often than you'd think. There's also just some really cool technology out there. I've got a spray that I can spray on fingerprints that have been submerged underwater if you can get them out of the water. And you can spray on fingerprints, and after a while, it will actually kind of develop the print if there's still anything there. So there's a lot of good technology out there. It's certainly, I would never write off a car as far as evidence just because it's been sitting in the water for a while. It's definitely worth digging into.
Latricia Woodruff, a police and communications expert. Can police still get cell phone records, text records even if the phone's submerged in water?
Oh, definitely. Those records aren't just contained on that phone. They would probably have to get some sort of court order to have those records released in order to get that information. Sergeant Cole deals with this all the time, so he would have a more informed answer to that question. But yeah, you can definitely get that information without having the phone definitely right there in front of you.
Kelly Ward, will it be easy for law enforcement to get that court order?
It should be easy to get a court order for her cell phone records if they haven't already done that. They've got plenty of information that would establish whether they need search warrant, whether to establish probable cause. There's an active investigation, so you think about a subpoena. Just depending on what type of information they want to get from the phone company, they shouldn't have a problem getting her information. Now, if they're going after cell site location data or from someone else's phone, then they're going to have evidence to establish probable cause to get a search warrant. It's not as easy to be if you're looking at some sort of either some person of interest or suspect or a contact. They're going to need a search warrant to get that, and they're going to have evidence to establish probable cause that that phone will contain information that would help in their investigation.
And I know somebody is asking, where was the phone found? And that is something that, quite frankly, law enforcement, would they be holding that information tight to the vest, Sergeant Thomas Cole?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about a phone. I don't know if we have information that her phone was found on her. So I think we may be speculating a little bit there. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that a lot of times the investigators would kind of keep close to the chest. There's always going to be stuff that we don't want to put out there in the public, and that helps several different ways down the line. One of which is that as we start to develop suspects and want to bring them in for questioning, suppose someone confesses something to us, we can use some of the details that we've kept close. We can use those and see if they know those details. And if I can get up in court and say there's no way they could have known this because we didn't release it, that makes it a lot more powerful of a confession, because people do confess and then sometimes they will recant their confessions. So a lot of times you get the confession and a young investigator may think, okay, well, I got the confession. What else is there to do? But you really have to keep working after that, and you have to try to strengthen that confession as much as you can. So there's always going to be details that we don't put out there, especially early on.
Well, Kelly Ward, even if let's say this turns into a homicide investigation and they were to get a confession, that doesn't mean that the case is a slam dunk.
No, not necessarily at all. You still need, the more evidence you have, the better your case is. You can never have too much evidence. And so, like Sergeant Cole said, and I've had this happen several times in my career, where someone will confess and then claimed that it was a false confession or a coerced confession, and that the details were given to them, but the details weren't known by anyone other than law enforcement. So I've actually gone back and looked at news stories and news reports to make sure that information wasn't in some sort of story and the person couldn't have read it online. The same goes for witnesses. If a suspect tells their best friend or their girlfriend or whoever what they did, if they confess to a third party and then the third party decides they want to go to the police want to be able to corroborate that third person's statement. They want to know that they have gotten information from the suspect, and they use that corroborating information that they haven't released to the public to be able to say, okay, yeah, this is a good witness. This witness knows what they're talking about. This witness is giving us details that nobody else knows.
Interesting. Well, if there is anybody out there with any information on Kaniya Weddle, again, she disappeared April 14th, leaving a bar in West Little Rock. Her body was found on Thursday night in the St. Francis River. If you have any information, you are asked to call Arkansas State Police or call the Little Rock Police Department. Before we go tonight, I just want to make just one point here, and obviously a very familiar face, Latricia Woodruff, longtime police communications expert with the Conway Police Department. You just retired from the Conway Police Department. You're venturing off into other things. You're still going to be here on Monday Night Mystery every Monday night, but I do want to just recognize you for the 10 years that you've done at the Conway Police Department. I know that agency would not be where it's at today without you.
Thank you for saying that, Mitch. Yes, I've been with the Conway Police Department for 10 years now. I poured my heart and soul into that job. I loved it. I loved getting to know the people at the Conway Police Department. I loved working in my community. I loved bridging the gap between the police department and the community, nurturing those relationships, building those relationships. So I'm very proud of the work that I did there, and I hope to see that continue now that I'm not there, but it's been a good run there. And I'm just happy about the job that I did there.
Well, you know, I say this time and time again. I worked in law enforcement briefly for about a year. And, you know, I've always found that police, and no offense to Sergeant Thomas Cole, police sometimes don't know how to communicate with the public or the media. And that's okay, because the police would never call a television news reporter or a media expert to come in and investigate a homicide. And so it's just so important now, especially 2021 in America, that law enforcement has some kind of civilian involved in the inner workings of how their department is communicating with the public. So, and I know that you are doing so much more than just communicating with the media or the public. I mean, from the holidays and fan drives to, I mean, there's just everything. The list goes on and on.
Yeah, it wasn't just a job for me. It was sort of a ministry of helping people. And part of helping people is helping them to understand how the police department works, why things happen the way that they do, and also being very transparent with people about what's going on. So I believe that I was able to do that, and hopefully I was able to help people feel a little bit more comfortable about dealing with the Conway Police Department and getting the information that they need during their everyday lives, because the public has a right to know, and being transparent and giving them the information that they need to know is part of the job. And that's the job that I did there at the Conway Police Department. It's pretty sad to leave, but you know, life changes and you make changes with it. So yeah, on my last day, no big fanfare or anything. Sergeant Cole, of course, came over and, said goodbye to him, but he's going to be here, so he'll get to see me, a couple of other people, but no big fanfare at all about me leaving. So, yeah.
Well, we really appreciate it. Sergeant Thomas Cole, I'm just wondering, who are you going to pick on now?
I don't know. I've got a couple candidates, and they'll be finding out pretty soon.
They'll be finding out pretty soon. Well, good deal. Well, Latricia, thank you so much. Sergeant Thomas Cole, thank you so much. Major Crimes Detective and Kelly Ward, a former Pulaski County prosecutor. Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate it. All right, that was Monday Night Mystery for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next Monday with another case, a new episode. A side note as well, on the month of May, we will be discussing the missing people of Arkansas. There are 4 different cases that we are highlighting next month, and we will be discussing that missing persons investigation all month long. So join us next Monday night, same place, same time, on a new Monday Night Mystery. For now, I'm Mitch McCoy from Studio B. Have a good rest of your night.